Good morning, my friends. I am Reverend Elisha Christopher. Pronouns I use are they, them. And my ancestors on my father's side come to this country from Scotland and Ireland, and my ancestors on my mother's side come from Austria and Holland. I did a little family research. I had to find some information out. So that's me. Let's begin by taking a few breaths together. So if you will, exhale first. Take a deep breath in. And let go. Take another deep breath. And let go. One more deep breath in. And so here we are, my friends. It is mid-December. We are wrapping up our season of harvest, and we're moving into the season of light. And so our talk title today is Light Your Candle. We've been talking a lot in the last number of weeks about investing and engaging and enrolling in this community and the space that there is here for each one of us to bring our gifts and our talents and our opportunities to share our authenticity with each other, to bring them into this space. And that really this whole conversation we've been having over Season of Harvest is really about each one of us lighting our unique candle, bringing our particular light to this community. And, you know, we've been singing this chant for a number of weeks now, I am remembering who I am. That the core of why we're here is to cultivate this awareness that there's something more within us than, as Aaron just sang, all the layers of who we believe we are or who we are perceived to be. That there's something deeper that exists within all of us, and that is the light itself. You know, and almost all traditions, almost all faiths across all time say that God is light. And therefore, if we are light, then we are God. And really, quite literally, the very particles of our existence are made of light. That these bodies that we are wearing are made of light, and that light is God. And so I want to start with a quote from Ernest Holmes, founder of Science of Mind, and he says that the fire of heaven is the candle of the Spirit burning on the individual altar in the sanctuary of our own soul. It is never independent of the original flame. Every person is a divinity in disguise, a God playing the fool. We are each a divine being wearing a mask, largely unconscious of our own divinity, occasionally awakened by some flash of consciousness which temporarily reveals itself to the self and proclaims the eternal incarnation of a child begotten of the only God. Ernest Holmes is reminding us that the very fire of our being, the light of our soul, is divinity itself. You know, that's the first principle, the first premise of Science of Mind, is that God is all there is. And if God is all there is, then it means that's who you are, that's who I am. And I think it's important for us as we get into mid-December, as we're sliding towards winter solstice, as we move towards the darkest night of the year, to once again use this time of the year as an important and potent reminder for all of us. You know, we are living in remarkable times of transition, and there is a lot breaking down in the world around us. And metaphorically, we could say that there's a lot of darkness out there. And oftentimes when I look at the situations of the world, when I look at the decisions of the Supreme Court, when I look at the choices of our previous administrations, when I look at the way we interact with the environment, when I look at how we do or do not value people in our society, there's a really clear picture that the world seems to be getting darker. Things are looking less like the potential future we want is available to us, right? And yet, as we talked about last week, as Gene Houston told us, the only way that the future that we are calling forward is going to come into existence is if we allow it to wake up in us. We bring the possibility into our mind and we bring it into our life. We become the light of the world. And I really want us to think about this idea of each one of us being in this place, being part of a community, doing our spiritual work, engaging in our spiritual practices as a necessity for us to keep cultivating that spark of light that we are each carrying. Because as the seasons get darker, what do? We put lights on everything. Right? As we move towards the darkest day of the year, we start putting lights on trees. We bring trees in the house to put lights on them. We put lights on the building. We start throwing parties. We have all these wonderful festive things to bring the light in when it seems to be the darkest. Right? That's why we celebrate. That's why we're celebrating this Friday. Make sure to get your tickets. Because we are approaching the darkest night of the year. It's time to light it up. Right? And so I want us to take this metaphor out into the world and recognize that if we look into the world and we see a world that seems to be descending into darkness, then what's our job? Our job is to light up the scene. Right? Our job is to be the light in the world. If we see darkness, our role is to then bring our little candle into that space. You know, and we've all heard it said, there's not enough darkness in the world to put out the light of one single candle. And the thing that's powerful about candles and light is that when you bring them together, more becomes available, as always. And so I've been thinking about this a lot as we recognize what is the purpose of gathering in spiritual community? What is the purpose of meditating and looking for God inside of myself and knowing that there's a divine spark and going, ooh, it's all wonderful? It's because that awareness, when it is actually awake and alive in us, is the light that the world needs. That sitting on your meditation cushion or praying or looking for God in yourself is not about you. It's about bringing the true light of life into the world, the authenticity that is meant to be here. You know, we talk about our dream, our vision of a world that works for everyone. A world that works for everyone, to me, is a world where we appreciate, we see, we cultivate in the value, the unique light that lives in each and every person. And so it's our job to cultivate it within ourselves for the world. You know, when I grew up in a much more conservative belief system than the one I found later in life. And, that belief system told me that at some point the world was going to fall apart, get real bad, and the light of the world was going to come save us all. And at some point I thought, I wonder if it's me. Turns out it might be. But it's you too. It's not just me. I'm not doing it by myself. Too many messiahs have tried that. It didn't work out. We got to do this together, right? Deepak Chopra says that the next avatar, the next savior, the next incarnation of the divine is not going to be an individual. It's going to be a community, right? It's the awakening of the light of the world within us. And in my early spiritual life, I used to think that there was going to be a savior, or someone who was going to come back again and take care of it all. And I realized as I came into New Thought and as my spirituality evolved, the idea began to emerge that what if this idea of a second coming of Christ or a great awakening or whatever it is really about that light waking up in each one of us? What if each one of us is the second coming? What if each one of us is the place where the awakening can take place? What if each one of us is the light of the world here to bring the love that is actually meant to be here? What if each one of us is the Savior that the world needs? And it's up to us to carry and cultivate our light into the darkest places. And we often talk about, we're looking at a world that needs so much attention, that there's so much breakdown in the environment and in our politics and in the division between peoples. And we say we have to fight against this, and we have to stand for justice, and we have to look at what's wrong, and we have to fix it all. And yet, I've been thinking a lot about this idea that we're reminded we can never solve a problem at the level of problem. And that we need a different mind in order to look at what is, in order to come up with a different answer, right? And if we approach fear with fear, if we approach anger with anger, if we approach pushback with pushback, what we just get is more pressure. But if we are willing, in the midst of it all, to take time and cultivate the light within us, it can then be that light which brings our perspective to what is. We need to be the ones who are able to come at the world from a new way of seeing and being. Not looking at it down from the level of what's happening, but looking at it from the level of what could be. Recognizing that if I touch the light within myself, if I find my authenticity, if I awaken my gifts, and I support you in doing the same and look for the same in you, then we begin to cultivate a world between us where our light and our authenticity is valued. And then when there's two lights together, there's more than either one could create on its own. You know, if we were to get in this room and turn all the lights off, which we're going to do next Tuesday, and light a candle in the middle of the room, you'd see what one light can do to a dark space. But then each one of us is going to light our individual candle, and we'll get to watch as the illumination takes place. And that's just a simple ritual, but we're going to do that next Tuesday as a way of celebrating the darkest night of the year, a way of invoking this idea that each one of us can carry the light. And when we bring it together, so much more becomes available, that a dark and cold space can become warm and bright when we all bring our light to the circle. The world needs people who are willing to shine light where it's needed. Because all of the things that are rising up in front of us right now in the world, in our nation, in our society, what if all of it, again, is an invitation for us to rise up and say, I have my light, I have my torch, I have my candle that I am bringing to this cause. And many of you have heard me say this for years now, but if you see something in the world that truly disturbs you, if you see something that feels wrong, if you see something that appears to be broken, guess what? It's yours to do something about. That what if all of the things that we're seeing in the world that look wrong are actually the invitations pulling on each one of us, saying there's something in you and something in you and something in you that the world needs, and because you're not sharing it, things appear not to be working. And that we want to create a world and a society that uplifts and values that truth within each person. And that we have to build it for ourselves. We have to bring it into existence. We have to choose it. But it has to come through our awareness. It has to come through our practice. It has to come through our choices. It has to show up in everything that we do. And so I believe that what we are doing in this place is coming into a place where we can be reminded of the light that each one of us has to carry. And we have this beautiful philosophy of science of mind that says the light, the spark within your being, the very center of your soul, is God itself. Is pure potential, has never been hurt or harmed in any way, is absolute purity, is absolute light, is absolute love. And then there's all the layers of you that you've smeared all over it. And all of our spiritual practice is about washing those layers off and getting back to this awareness of the truth of who we are. And if we can awaken that strong enough within ourselves, then perhaps we can peer through all those messy layers in others and remember that there's a divine spark in the center of their being as well. But beyond this awareness that the spark of life, the spark of light is God, I also believe that each one of us has our unique authenticity, our unique purpose, our unique calling that brought us into this world. And that's the light that you have to bring out into the world. That's the light that you have to share. And so I want to read a quote from that Jean Houston, from her book, The Quest of Rose, that I've been referring to all the month. She says, if you don't like our current world story, then start telling a better story, even before it becomes reality. Start telling a better story even before it becomes a reality. Live a better truth from the reality of your choice. Inspire the change. What you appreciate, appreciates. Devote time, attention, and intention to this coming of a higher plan for our earth and the species she carries. And so we've been doing this kind of back and forth with Ernest Holmes and Jean Hewson for the last couple weeks, if you've noticed. And what Ernest is saying is, remember, the core of who you are is divinity, is pure potential. And then Jean is saying, from that pure potential, you can see a particular possibility. From the fractal, from the angle, from the pattern of uniqueness that you are, you can see a particular possibility. You have a particular vision for where the world could be. And it's your job to cultivate that vision so strong that it becomes so alive in you before it shows up in the world, so that you be the place of bringing it into existence. And this is a tricky game to play with ourselves. Can we use the power of our imagination, of our belief, and our cultivated spiritual practice to create realities in our minds and in our agreed upon mental space between us that is so vivid that it becomes more alluring than the physical world is as we see it? We need to be people who are capable of holding a vision for ourselves, for our world, for our bodies, for our society, that is calling us forward. Because if we are filled with passion, that passion will drive us. It will move us so much faster than if we're trudging through the mud, stuck in the stuff of the world. And so the idea is we need to continuously be up-leveling our consciousness and realize that each one of us has a light, this little light of mine. What's your job? Let it shine, right? You know that. You know that. So do it. You know, you all know the song. So this is, the purpose of being in community is that, it's kind of hard out there. The world's a little weird, it's getting weirder. But it's like 2 degrees easier to practice it with the people in this room than it is with the people who are outside of this room. And so we come into this place where people are like, namaste, I see God in you. And you're like, I know. I see it in you too. What if it was that easy? If you can't remember, there's a mirror in the hall, in the lobby that says, God is, I am. Look in the mirror. It's a reminder. We come into this place to look into the mirror of each other and to be reminded that there are deep gifts waiting to be revealed, and that we can practice our common unity in this thing we call community and see what it's like to wake it up a little bit at a time. And so we come here to be reminded, to go back to that core truth that God's in you, God's in you, God. Okay, God, got it? Okay, now, what is it that you want to bring in? We got this. God this. We just have to begin to do the practice, and we are cultivating our global vision. We are working on what's calling us. And then each one of us finding our little piece of the puzzle, our little light, our one little candle. And recognize that the whole purpose of your spiritual practice, of our spiritual practice, is to remember that each one of us has this little light inside of us. And no matter what life has done to us, no matter what society has told us, no matter what hundreds or thousands of years of history has put on top of it, there is a divine spark inside of each one of us that can never be extinguished. But if we're willing to cultivate it, it can grow. And it can become bigger, it can become more, it can become noticeable, it can become infectious, it can become the world in which we live. But we have to bring it here and cultivate it out. So that is what we're going to do. That's what we're doing. We're going to keep doing it. Take a breath. And let go. As I invite the ministers and practitioners to stand and hold this light with me Take another breath. And so as we just deepen into this moment, we breathe. Let each of us remember here and now that we are being breathed by something greater than ourselves. That there is a great seamlessness, that there is a great light, that there is great infinite consciousness that some of us might call God. We call it the universe, energy, love. But let us recognize that this one light is the light of life. It is who we are. It is that which makes up every particle of our existence. It is that which is speaking through me right now. It is that which is hearing through each one of us. That all of this is light. And that light is God. That it is the true nature of who we are. And so let us look to that. Let us cultivate that. Let us, each one of us, realize that we've been gifted this little light of mine. And that our job is to keep that light safe, to carry it with us everywhere we go, and to keep it like a little baby egg in our heart that we have to keep safe. And so we come to this place to share that light, to allow it to be seen, to allow it to be cultivated in community, so that each one of us can carry this blazing light of truth into the world where it is so desperately needed. And so right here and right now, I claim, know, and declare for every person in this room that whatever light is needed for us to see into the elements of our life that need illumination, that light be made available. If we need the light of healing, if we need the light of truth, if we need the light of justice, if we need the light of love, let it shine. Let the light shine, my friends. It is who we are. And if we are willing to be the light, we can illuminate the darkest corners of our minds, of our collective consciousness, and of our world, and bring about the world that we want to live in, the lives that we want to live in, to bring about the qualities of beauty and justice and harmony and love and balance back to the world. These qualities are available for us. We just have to choose them. And so let us cultivate our light and let us do it together with gratitude. As we dive into winter, as we move towards winter solstice, as we step into our time of celebration, let us be the light. Let every twinkling Christmas light remind us as we go through this holiday season that it's our job to light up the darkness, that each one of us is the light of the world. That each one of us is the light. And so let's let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. And so it is. Thou art God, my friends.